Okay, we're going to explain today how guided setup works in Salesforce Field Service. First and foremost, it's found under the Field Service Settings tab, which you'll have access to if you have been given FSL admin permissions and license. And under that Field Service Settings tab, it should be the first thing that pops up directly here of Go to Guided Setup. Again, it's checking permission sets. If you get an error, you just need that FSL admin permissions. And what guided setup allows you to do is to quickly set up a Salesforce field service org to play around and understand each of the components. So we're going to go through each of them today, both to explain Salesforce field service and how it works within guided setup. So first and foremost is service territories. And what service territories are the rough geographical areas in which you do work. So if you have 20 people all centered around a single city and everybody can do everything, you've got one territory. If you're spread across the entire globe into different time zones, into different countries with different rules, you might have hundreds. But all of them are centered around saying, I have an individual rough area where these operating hours in this time zone in this address is occurring. So you have the ability to set these up in mass, whether you have 3 or 3,000. Then you have from your territories, you say what work is available. As Empodio focuses on home and business services, especially those with recurring and routed services to take advantage of optimization, we have pre-built into this demo work everything from pool maintenance to pest control to mowing. But each of these individual work types says, I do deer repellent services. And when they come in this case, deer repellent would probably happen via something called a maintenance plan, which I'll show you on a different video, which is going to route it every 2 months with a time frame. But in the example of, for instance, snow, when it comes in, has to be done that day. And if we have a default estimated duration of 60 minutes, that's able to be flexible based on what type of job and what piece, we would say snow 1 day. And in order to do this, we might need a snow skill that we would add in to the system and have that skill set so that we know what work do we do, about how long does it take. And there are ways, if you have much more variable, that we set that up for you, and about how long it should take when the job comes in to when it should be done and what skills are required. Once we have our what work do we do, what skills do we have, and where do we do it, we got to add the people who do it. So in this case, we set up Empodio Delivery as a user and a service resource. You might call them technicians, you might just call them people out in the field, you might just call them Bob. But at the end of the day, you have people who do work. So you have the user in the system. That does have to be set. What you'd like their service resource to be called. So if that's Little Bob, you can set that up there because if that's what everybody calls him, and the Gantt label. A Gantt label, and a Gantt might be a confusing word for you, is just your schedule and your schedule tab. So when you're looking at Little Bob and you want to know he is a mowing tech, you would put that in there of whatever is going to help you better manage and understand your schedule. And where does Bob work? So if Bob works in the company territory, we would set it. And then if they're going to use the mobile app, we would give them that license. So this is making them schedulable, giving them the license to work on the mobile app. And all we do is press add. Once you have given yourself all of the service resources, then you have places to work to do, skills needed, and the people who do it. So you need the people who assign them the work. And that's the dispatchers and the agents. Agents might be a weird word for you. That might be office staff. Dispatcher, you're probably pretty familiar with. But for us, delineation is a dispatcher is somebody who's actually managing a schedule. They're responsible for seeing where John's going to be today, making sure he's optimized, responding to cancellations. An agent is somebody who's going to get a phone call, an inbound case and work order, and book appointments. So they say, yes, Mr. Customer, I see that you have this problem. We can get somebody out tomorrow at 2. Is that all right? And book. So you would delineate and choose the individual users that you want to add into the system and give them either the dispatcher licenses that give them to the entire kit and caboodle, or the agent license, which is simply to give them the much lighter permissions of being able to book appointments and see availability. Next, we actually need to figure out how we book it. And This might take introducing an interesting topic for you called appointment windows. The goal here is to say, when are you available to do the work and what windows do you want to provide for them? So, all that means is that you may have a tendency of saying, I'm going to be there around 10, or you might already have appointment windows. But the goal within field service is to try to be able to say, I never lie to my customer. And by lying, I mean that I missed something that I told them. So you give yourself the flexibility to say, we're going to be there tomorrow sometime in between 9 to 11, in this case, a 2 hour window. And what that 2 hour window signifies is please be home during this time. We're scheduling somebody out. We might change who that person is. They might come in sick, but we're going to do everything we can to try to be there during that time frame. Now, you might notify them the day of that somebody's coming and they're going to be there at 9:30 so they know that they can get out later. But your goal is to say, this is the window in which things will occur to give yourself the flexibility for when somebody's at a job late, somebody doesn't show up, John can't finish a job on time, so you have to pull Bill in to do it from halfway across town and still hit that window without being so broad that you're doing what everybody used to hate and saying, we'll be there sometime tomorrow, and somebody's just stuck at home waiting for you. So we're striking that balance with that appointment booking. And finally, you want to take advantage of Salesforce's really advanced features of optimization and say, start having it decide and create a better and better schedule for us. And the way that we do that is with scheduling policies. And all a scheduling policy is to say, I'm telling the system, this is what I want to happen so that it can do the job for us and make dispatching and schedule management much easier. And that comes with a combination of two things: work rules and service objectives. A work rule says who can do the job. A service objective just means who should do the job. So, what that looks like is 4 work rules in this policy. I need to have people who are active, of course, who can do the job within the time frame, who have the right skills, who are in the right territory. And if there is a required service resource of saying that somebody, government contract, or somebody's approved to work at this site, or they just really like that person, that this person's required to do this job, but they're available to do the job and they're available to do it within the visiting hours if they're included. All that does is say, I have 45 people who work for me, and only 10 work in that territory. Only 5 have the right skills. 2 of them are listed as required as the only 2 people who can do that job. Now, when it then goes and says, okay, I got this job, I've narrowed it down to the 2 people who can do the job, and I have a 3-day window in which these 2 people can do the job, when should it happen? I've got 16 available slots across that period. You then have the ability to tell the system, well, I just want to minimize travel. You might say that. You might say, in these situations, I just need travel to be the sole consider because I have too much work on this schedule. As long as jobs are done within the 3-day window, then it's fine. I just need to get work done. Or you might say, I do some pretty important work. When it comes in, it can't happen too late. So I need to balance it out with trying to get the job done as soon as somebody calls. You then are playing with this, and you should experiment and see what happens on the schedule and see what it recommends. And you can see how easy it is to change, to be flexible, to say, what is the best for my business? What is the best for my use case, for my customer expectations, and for the objectives that I'm trying to hit? All of this is what you can play with within guided setup to be able to make small changes or to set up a simple org or to really just get this concept of to always come back here and say, is this really the priorities that I want to be having for my schedule in this instance in this time frame? Thanks for listening. Hope it was helpful.